Hey folks, Michael Collins back again with EnviroReporter.com on August 11, 2011. We've just taken apart this Honeywell HEPA filter, and there's an outside filter to the left there, the dark one. You can see debris on it, and the inside barrel drum HEPA filter itself. And we vacuumed them, and what we got was debris. So that debris is in a little test glass thing right there at the bottom. And we're going to run a test on it as soon as I can figure out a place to put this dirty HEPA filter. Well, print journalism isn't dead after all. I put it on an edition of the Daily News. Now here's the inside drum, and vacuum that out. You want to vacuum these out because you want them to operate at full capacity. And there is all the aggregate dust. Now I'm going to take one of those tedious background measurements. Here's our inspector Geiger counter. It's actually a nuclear radiation monitor. Detects alpha, beta, and gamma radiation as well as X-ray. Put it to timer. Turn it to on with the audio. Calibrated. We're going to take a 10-minute reading, and we're going to do it right now, and we can hear any overages. I'm actually going to do the rare moving shot, and of course screw it up. I'm going to withdraw that motion. Try this again. And we're going to take an average. And we're going to protect the screen and the detector in there with this Geiger counter condom and the extreme boot. And here we go. Of course, you all know we're taking a 10-minute average. That way we get even more accurate results. Now we're taking it in counts per minute, meaning that the aggregate reading here we divide by 10 and we get counts per minute. Now people go, no, wait a minute, shouldn't it be millisieverts per hour, millirem per hour, what? Well, actually it's all the same thing. It's different kinds of measurements of the same thing, which is ionization that the inspector's detecting tube is picking up. Reason I use counts per minute, it's easier for people to think in whole numbers than it is in fractions. But the average background in here in radiation station is about 35, maybe up to 40 counts per minute. Inside, outside, it's higher. Los Angeles in general has about double the background it should have, what you would expect it would normally have. Around 20 or so. Instead in LA it's about 40 plus. Don't know why. I mean, 35 miles northwest of downtown Los Angeles in 1959, the nation's worst partial nuclear meltdown took place at a facility called the Santa Susana Field Laboratory, commonly known as Rocketine. In July of '59, a reactor called the Sodium Reactor Experiment partially melted, and over a period of weeks released, according to some estimates, up to hundreds of times more radiation, depending on which radionuclide, than did the more infamous partial meltdown at 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania 20 years later. The reason it released so much more radiation is that, unlike 3 Mile Island, this was in an experimental reactor that did not have any containment structure. But that's not why you're here. What you're here for is to see if I'm picking up radiation from the Fukushima Daiichi triple meltdown, melt through, and melt out. Well, on this machine here that Denise Ann and I used to clean part of radiation station, we've got, and it's been hot in here before. I talked about that in the first video. So what we did is we vacuumed out these drums, took the aggregate, and as you can see, there's ionization in it. Now, compared to other parts of the country, like in St. Louis where Porterblog is, P-O-T-R-B-L-O-G, is, and you can find him on our resources site, he's detected up to 62 times background, a couple of times in the St. Louis area. There's a fella going across Canada right now that in the last week has put YouTube videos up that have shown rainfall in the western part of Canada and moving into the central part of Canada up to 140 times the background here in LA, which is double what it should be. So we're talking about 200 times background. Now, if you think of rain, you think, well, rain dries out, it goes away. Well, it sure does, but the radionuclides don't. They pile up. We've had an incredibly high reading in Oklahoma City in just the last few days. We have a friend in North Carolina who's been sending us amazing readings, high readings, using his inspector. And you have a government that isn't spending a nickel on testing for Fukushima-related radiation in your air, in your water, in your food. Not a nickel. But then again, maybe we're in an era where people believe big government's the bad thing. Whoops, speaking of government, I'm the government here. It's a free marketplace, right? We just went past background a while ago. So if this reading here on this Honeywell HEPA filter with the 99.9% germ reduction factor down to 0.01 microns, nice and effective. If we have anything over background that is over the 15% margin of error for the inspector, which is a very conservative number, saying that if anything you get is within 15% of the it was within 15%, let's say, of background, then you have to discount it because it's within the machine's margin of error. I personally think, from my experience using this device for over a dozen years now, is that it is more probably in the 2 to 3 to 5% maximum error range. But I go with the 15%. So for us to pick up on radiation that may be in this dust here that has been HEPA filtered out of radiation station internally, it has to go over 15%. And guess what? We're way over that. What does it mean? It means all the radiation that's caught in this filter here wasn't breathed by Denise Ann and I. Or if it was breathed in and then breathed out and caught by this filter. What does it mean for you? Well, as we know, you can tell by coming to EnviroPorter.com, the main method of mechanism of fallout delivery is through precipitation. And that's rain, sleet, hail, and snow. And you want to just limit your exposure to radiation as much as possible. It's a cumulative thing. More is more, less is less. Actually, less is more. So what you want is a lot more of less. So things like the rain, unless you know if that rain is come on the jet stream, which is going to take radiation from Fukushima Daiichi right to you and your doorstep. If you know that's jet stream rain, you might want to think twice about running around in it and or letting your kids do that. Now, Porterblog has reported on a 4,000-mile trip down to Florida that the storms originating in the Atlantic over Africa that they had no added radiation. Now that's really good news for those of us who are worried about hurricanes coming in the hurricane season loaded with radiation and hammering everything. All we have to worry about is the jet stream doing that. And remember, it's the jet stream that brings the water to America's crops. So we're way over here. We're just going to have to wait till this thing averages out. On a hot spot in the prior video, we eyeballed about an 85 counts per minute ionization rate. Usually I found the aggregates will be a little less, a couple times a little more. I think, you know, if you find a hot spot and you sit on it, you're going to get a higher reading. If you take an aggregate, the hot spot might be in that aggregate, or it still might be caught up in the vacuum cleaner's HEPA filter because it has one itself. This seems to be quite a lively sample. I'm impressed. Let me tell you why. There hasn't been any rain in the last 23 days here in Los Angeles. Not a drop. And if you look at our statistics, it looks like everything's normal. So what's that say about the inspector and taking ambient air readings? Well, the inspector is incredibly accurate, so the ambient air readings are very important. This is an aggregate of filtered air. This is us cleaning our air at night. It doesn't mean just because it's not raining, the radiation from Fukushima Daiichi isn't in the air. So anything that we find here, while it's disconcerting, it's not stuff that went into us. So if you're watching this, you might want to consider a HEPA filter. Seeing is believing. This makes the peaches look like nothing. Look at that. Even 800. And that is over double background. And that's from a HEPA filter. Now we're going to go spot test our other HEPA filter in our third film of the day. Check it out.